Hello, I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Today, we meet an Iowan that's training drug prevention coalitions in Central Asia, as well as working in Iowa. Educated in her native Russia with over 20 years in substance abuse prevention as an Iowan, Katya Boltanova shares her unique perspective on community drug prevention with some insights and ideas learned from her work in Asia that may help inspire some community coalition building in Iowa. Katya, welcome to the show. Let's start with a little bit about your life in Russia and what brought you here.
Oh, I was born and raised in Gorno-Altaysk, which is a small town, much like Iowa City, in the south of Western Siberia. It's like where Russia borders China, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, like that little tip there. It's part of Central Asia, actually, surprisingly. And my work brought me all the way back to Central Asia 20 years ago, 20 years later. Um, well, 10 years later. But anyway, so I grew up there. I finished my college education there in teaching foreign languages, English and German. And then I got a scholarship from Rotary International, and the scholarship was given by Iowa District 6000, Rotary District 6000, inviting me to come to Iowa specifically. So technically, in my application, I listed New Zealand first, Canada second, and the USA as the third country. And here I am, brought to the US, and of course, it was my choice to come here. And specifically, I was really interested in Iowa, and I was thinking if I were to go to the US, I would go to Iowa because as a linguist, I knew that classic American English is spoken in Iowa, and a lot of broadcast professionals are sent to universities in Iowa to pick up the accent here. So I really wanted to pick up the Iowa accent before going back home. And so I had a year to study here.
Well, that's a very, very interesting perspective. And that Rotary program is pretty nice. It's good to have brought you here. I've seen you at work with various coalitions and various meetings, and you're an extremely passionate and hardworking individual. Tell us about sort of your ascension into the drug prevention world when you and I. What originally motivated you to take that turn?
That was an accident, a complete accident. So basically, Peter, I got to the University of Iowa, studied for a year, taking some journalism classes and writing classes, really trying to grasping to improve my English as much as I could and practice my English writing and speaking as much as I could. And during the journalism classes, I needed to write some pieces, and I chose a local coalition that was here, and also just alcohol binge drinking was a hot topic in Iowa City at the time. And so during my debate class, that was something that we were debating about is binge drinking and what are some things we can do to change that. And also interviewing coalition members and just getting to know them got me into this topic. And then once I finished, I met my husband here and we got married. And then I ended up looking for something to do for myself because my education in teaching languages and English and German, what I would be doing is teaching English with my Russian accent in America where English is native. So that was kind of out of the picture. The career that I was planning for 6 years to do and getting myself educated for that. So I couldn't do that. So I had to figure something out. And what I was good at is public speaking and really organizing people because part of my Rotary engagement back in Russia when I was a student, I was I organized things and I organized a Rotaract club for it's Rotary Youth, 18 to 30 years old, young professionals and college students. And as a college student, I created a club like that. And we did a lot of fundraising activities, events, big events, rock concerts. I did what I was interested in, basically. And we were collecting funds to support local organizations for handicapped youth, homeless youth, things like that, back in Gorno-Altaysk. And So that was I naturally was experienced and pretty good at. So when I heard about an opportunity for uh, to work for a coalition, to organize a coalition in Washington County, I applied for it in a local agency, and I started doing that. Basically, that's kind of how I got in it. But it was something that just kind of naturally led me to it.
That's really fascinating. And I know you've done well. And now we have we're going to take a short break, but interestingly enough, you've gone full circle from working and learning that industry and moving up through the ranks and becoming an effective community activist on behalf of reducing substance use and abuse. And now you're doing work in Central Asia. So we're going to take a short break and come back and learn how that happened and enjoy the story that Katya has to share. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
Malware and bots and worms, oh my. The wild, wild web can be a scary and complex place. And as our digital world expands, so too are the threats. Watch out! Trojan horse. That's why at MediaCom, we take security very seriously and monitor our networks around the clock to stop threats before they can affect you. Not today, rude kid. Not all internet is created equal. We build ours to keep you connected and protected.
Watching MC22 is now easier than ever before. All MediaCom customers can watch local programming online anytime. Go to mc22.net, click Watch MC22, and log in with your MediaCom account. Not a MediaCom cable subscriber? MediaCom internet or phone subscribers can watch too. Your local programming leader, MC22, online at mc22.net/watch.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're talking with Katya about her journey from Russia, United States, and a career in substance abuse prevention that has, developed in Iowa as well as extended to Central Asia. Let's hear a little bit more about how her roots began here in Iowa. Welcome back.
All right. So in Iowa, as I already said earlier, I started in Washington County, and I was part of creating a coalition there, organizing people. I did a lot of coffee drinking in coffee shops with people there, and lots of phone calling and just getting to know people. And that's how coalition in Washington County was created. And I've worked there for 5 years. Then I moved on to Johnson County, and Johnson County had a coalition that's been around for 20 something years. It was a well-established, well-run coalition. So I joined that coalition, but it was at the end of their drug-free communities funding cycle, where we really needed to get into sustainability planning. And so I started planning for sustainability for them and figuring out how to establish themselves so that they can be like really a solid coalition for without any funding. So successfully that happened with rolling over some of the expenses, like coordinator position was funded partially by the city of Iowa City, another half was by the University of Iowa, and the mayor and the University of Iowa provost are co-chairing the coalition now. And that's now been going on like that for a good 14 years without a dime of funding from anywhere outside of Iowa City. There's also a Johnson County-wide coalition that I'm a part of. I've always been a part of that one too. Even when I was living in Iowa City, working in Washington County, but I was doing things with the local coalition because I live here. I was helping to start coalitions in Iowa County and Cedar counties, writing DFC grants for them, the drug-free communities grants for them, and helping them start it. And in the process of, while I was still in Washington County, I think it was 2005 or so, um, I was, we were struggling with some projects that we were doing, with some measures that we needed to control and reduce the number of math labs in Iowa. And we were trying to control the fertilizers that the farmers have on their land, and the pseudoephedrine sales in drugstores. And so, and we realized we couldn't do it alone in just our county. We did it in a county, but people would just go outside the county because counties are so small and it's easy to get around. So I realized and not just me, but several other people in Iowa realized that we needed to collaborate somehow. And so that's how AC4C, its Alliance of Coalitions for Change, got started. It was just some coalition people like me getting together at the governor's conference during lunch and talking about some of the similar issues we're all having and obstacles that we were experiencing. And we really needed to have a more presence and a more collective voice at the state level. And so we decided that we needed to organize like that, like
It's
create a
really
coalition of
fascinating
coalitions.
because not only did you make a key statement, because I live here now, which means you embraced, even though you were working in a different county, embraced the county that you lived in, which says a lot about engaging, which is what coalition building has to do. And also the talk about organizing other people to help make sure this isn't just a local thing, but to make it work statewide, which is the essence of coalition building. So this is something that, you know, coming in this country, you adapted to very quickly. It seemed like a very natural process for you. Tell us more about how that transitioned to really on a larger scale to open the door for you to go to Asia.
I got my foot in Katka's field of view through, and Katka is used to be back in the day Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America. It's an association of coalitions that was providing training and support and resources to community coalitions that had DFC funding around the US. And in early 2000s, they started being international. But also they have an institute for coalitions to train to get more effective, basically. So Washington County Coalition, AC4C, Johnson County Coalitions, all of them went through that institute. And I was the one who was the connecting person to Katka and my coalitions here. And then I was just sitting there 10 years into my coalition work. And I got a phone call from their international director, Eduardo Hernandez, who said, do you have a passport? And I was like, yeah, I do. And he said, all right, so your name was given to me by the Institute, and they've known you for so many years. And they said that you would be great at building coalitions in other countries, namely in Central Asia. Because the way Katka works internationally is they don't work through interpreters. They find native speakers in those countries. And that's how I got to go and speak at the UN conference, UNODC conference, and talk with all of these representatives from Central Asian countries to get ourselves invited in working with them.
Well, this is a fascinating story, and I'm really interested to see how that started, because going before the UN and other places, that's really profound work, and Iowa should be proud of you doing that on our behalf. Let's take a short break, and we come back. We'll listen to the rest of Katya's story. Stay tuned.
Dad, I'm not glitching.
I told you with our new Extreme Internet, it will be smooth streaming.
That's unbelievable.
Well, you better believe it, Missy.
I already finished streaming the whole second season of my show.
So start the third.
What the fast? That's really not frustrating.
I'll take that as a compliment.
You should.
I'm gonna get some ice cream. Do you want some?
With the drama-free reliability of Extreme Internet, you'll have to create your own. Get super fast internet with whole home Wi-Fi for as low as $24.99 a month for a year.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove. You told me not to do drugs. You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. We're learning about, maybe some cultural differences and lessons learned from building community coalitions in Central Asia and how they may influence Iowa. Let's find out more about the story from Katya. Katya, welcome back.
Awesome. The three countries that invited us right away, right there at the meeting, was Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan. Though in Kazakhstan, we didn't get started right away, but the two countries I was working, and the concept of coalitions was really new to them. They had no idea of prevention through community work whatsoever. So that was a little bit of a struggle at first. And plus, also, this American organization coming there trying to organize people, that sounded suspicious sometimes. And we would had people attending trainings that I was doing from special service agencies, the natives there trying to like make sure that I'm not saying anything that I shouldn't be saying.
But
And
this was all really orchestrated by what started with the United Nations. So you did have a pretty good door open there.
right. But also this whole initiative is funded by U.S. Department of State. So that was the suspicion that kind of came from that direction. Like, why is America funding things like this here?
Now, what is
But
the
then they warmed
substance?
up.
What is the substance abuse problem like in those countries when you first experienced listening to what they needed?
Surprisingly, at first, they would just tell me, we don't have any problems around here. Everything is improving, everything is doing well. And the reason is some of them have dictatorships and they cannot openly talk about the problems. But then when you work more with them, they actually do say there is lots of synthetic drugs that are going on there. There are some natural drugs that are growing there. There's lots of heroin that comes from Afghanistan. There are some poppies that are growing in the mountains there. It's a mountainous region. So there's a variety of drugs there. And once they got to know me more, they started talking about it and they started planning their community work around those drugs, how to change demand and supply of those drugs. So the thing that I also worked here and there in the Philippines and Indonesia, in Albania. I helped to start a program in Albania and in Ghana. And what I'm seeing around Central Asia and around all of these other countries, the coalitions there are more, people are more connected inside the coalitions that I've been experiencing in Iowa. They actually get together and do things outside of their meetings. They bring their families together. They organize picnics. They organize camping trips. They celebrate holidays together. So they're more like clubs there almost that also do work together related to prevention.
Which
is
sort of
interesting.
relates to why there's maybe been some resistance to somebody coming new, because their approach, which is really community and family oriented, probably was not initially super welcome to outsiders, I would guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
So did you then become close with these people in the same way?
Yes, I'm part of family there. Oh, I wish I had some of the things they give me. I have a lot of different ethnic outfits that they give me, hats and robes and things like that, that are really ornate and beautiful. And I sometimes wear them around here and get a lot of compliments. And when they come to conferences here, they also always bring some of those gifts for me. It's so heartwarming and to be really a part of their teams, and they feel like children to me also because I helped organize them and educate them in prevention and organize them around this topic really that they weren't doing before. And this is a new approach for them, and this is something that they are really thriving. They're making a huge difference, and I'm seeing how their communities are changing all around because of their work there. And it's really rewarding to see that.
So is it safe to say that prior to your work there, they sort of had a top-down governments and things like that did it, and then when you get in, it becomes a little bit more organic. It's bottom up through the community itself?
Exactly.
Now, how did government officials and people like that respond to that?
It takes some persuasion to get the government on board as well, because initially they're suspicious that, what are these people organizing? Are they going to overthrow us or something? But in reality, because coalitions need to have 12 sectors, and a lot of those sectors, like education, healthcare, is government run in those countries. Education is government run in those countries. City councils, city employees, county, it's all government related. And so when they see that they are fully well represented in those coalitions, and they have full awareness of what's going on, and they have some input into the work in there, they realize that, oh, this is actually helping us. And it's smooth sailing since after that.
Well, that's fascinating. Well, let's take a short break, and we're going to come back and ask Katya for some final comments, insight, and inspirations that she's learned in this work in Asia. See you all after the break. You don't want to miss this.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Oh boy.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Growing antsy for your favorite sports to return? Lack of quality programming got you down? Well, worry no longer, because Inside Sports is here to satisfy your cravings for the savings, your need for speed, your desire for the umpire. You get the message, right? Tune in to Inside Sports to get a deeper look at athletes on and off the mat, the track, and even the Wi-Fi? Yup, if there's action, you can bet we've got you covered on Inside Sports, only on MC22. Stream online on MC22.net and on our channel Monday and Fridays.
Welcome back. Today on Surviving Bad, we talked about substance use prevention coalitions and some comparisons between Asia and Iowa. We want to see what final insights and inspiration Katya has to share with us, but she did promise that she'd share some of the gifts that she's received on her travels, which is she's going to show us some hats she received, tell us where they're from, and they're a little bit different than the average hat you'll see in Iowa. Katya, tell us a little bit about the hats.
All right, so I'm wearing one of them. This one is from Kulyab region of Tajikistan. This one is also from Tajikistan, and this is from Harok region, which is the mountainous region south, very close to Afghanistan border. And this one is from Kazakhstan. It has a dome, like the yurt. Sometimes I wear them around the house, and I wish to, if they were stylish around here, I would wear them around town too.
Well, I really like that, especially that yurt reference in terms of, so there's a deep cultural significance to these changes, and you've worked to sort of integrate the idea that the community can build its own health model. And on a couple of instances, you've mentioned how things are somewhat different in Iowa. What do you think some of the major lessons are that we could learn here from what you've done overseas?
I would say what I wish we had more in Iowa that I see in other regions is a little bit more passion in people's work that they're doing. A lot of times, I think the difference is because over there, they don't have any funding to fund the coalitions. And so all of their work is entirely volunteer work, or the work that they do for their job. That is, they find a way to do this coalition work through their job. Like, a school administrator wants to be part of a coalition, so they need to find time to do that as their role, but there is no additional pay or anything like that. In Iowa, in the US, I've seen, because there is drug-free communities funding, because there is other funding through the state and other federal and other sources. So it feels like, because the grant tells us to do something, and then there is also a hired grant coordinator to run the project, often the coalition is kind of disengaged. They want the coordinator to do all of the work, and the coalition just kind of there to advise them, maybe. And I wish there was more that passionate involvement, that people would actually want to be part of it and do it. And they have no idea how much this extra support that they have through the grants is really something that's special that other countries don't have. And they make do without any of that, and they're more effective somehow versus when there is funding. And because maybe people take it more as their job description and they don't want to step outside of the 9 to 5 sometimes, or they just see it as a job rather than their passion or something that they really want to do as their residents, as citizens of their towns.
Now,
So
do you think
I've
this is
been-
this is a failure of leadership here, or is it that culturally we've sort of always think somebody else is going to solve our problems?
And here is the paradox. Americans volunteer a lot. Americans volunteer. There is a perception in the world that Americans volunteer a lot more than any of those other countries. Because when I tell them about my coalitions in other countries, they tell me, oh, Americans volunteer a lot. We don't. And it's like, no, you guys, you guys volunteer about the same. And I don't know exactly what it is. I think Americans may be more formal and maybe more keeping their distance in their culture a little bit more from each other, and they're less engaged personally. And people over there, they become friends with each other when they work together. And so when they're friends, getting together, having meetings, working, moving the project along is easier because they can call each other at 10 p.m. and ask a question, which is never happens here.
You know, what wonderful insights. And we really should be thankful that you're here lending this perspective, because, you know, they talk about building, it takes a village to craft a solution. And sometimes we think we're doing everything right, but there's some simple ideas that can come from a whole different world that could help Iowa approach this idea of building community coalitions a little bit better. And I thank you very much for your input. And I thank you all for joining us today. Check out our website at healthyiowa.org and keep your eye on MediaCom MC22 for our next episode of Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. On MediaCom MC22, your local programming leader.